Not only is George doing well, but Thomas's elder daughter Mary is now married to a senior courtier, William Carey. But the ace in Thomas's hand is Anne.
That's just a little taster from a programme that starts tonight on BBC Two. It's a new series about the Boleyn family. That's it, as in Henry VIII's wife, Anne Boleyn. And just in case you're not sure, she's the one who had her head chopped off. So it's all about her family. As you would expect, from me anyway, there are Suffolk links. Dr. Owen Emmerson has been working on the show. He knows lots about Anne Boleyn because he works at Hever Castle in Kent, where she grew up, and he joins us now. Afternoon to you.
Hello there, so lovely to join you.
It's lovely to be here, and this sounds an amazing series.
It really is. It's been such a pleasure working on it. I mean, we fairly used to Anne Boleyn's story, but the story of her larger family is largely unknown, I would argue. And this is a really sympathetic, and it draws upon primary sources, and it's just wonderfully lavish as well.
And scandalous by the sounds of things, which we all love. So, I mean, were they a really important family then?
They were, and actually, you know, often their success is attributed to Anne's rise to being queen. Actually, their story and their rise began much earlier than that. Sort of over 3 generations, they rose through their acumen and skill, and also advantageous marriages to really high positions. And it's this retelling of the story, not seeing the women in the story as sort of pawns and puppets to be traded into the king's bed, that sort of liberates the women of the story too. These were really remarkable women, and they had agency and power, and they were using it to their own advantage. That's what's so remarkable about this series, I think.
And do you think it's a story that should have been told ages ago?
Yes, I mean, so many historians have been working on this. The wonderful Dr. Laura Mackay and also Claire Ridgway, for example. They've done some incredible work in this area, and it's just taken a bit too long, I think, to get the real story up there. But I'm utterly thrilled that it's going to be up there tonight.
And I mentioned that we love our local links here, and in fact we've got 2, haven't we? Because Anne Boleyn did come to Suffolk, but I think Thomas Wolsey, who came from Suffolk originally, is also part of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there is a lovely legend that part of Anne's body, her heart, is buried at St Mary's Church in Overton, which always fascinates me.
And I know that at one stage that they did, I think, according to stuff I've read, they did actually excavate a casket, and this is probably in the, I'm not sure, it was 18 or 1900s, but then they reburied it. So we're going to have to go and find out, aren't we, one day, and dig it up again and then try and do a bit of DNA analysis.
Absolutely. I mean, I just love these legends. I mean, there's a competing legend, shall we say, that her body was dug up from the Tower of London and buried in Saul Church, where she was most likely christened. But I think these sort of competing myths sort of underpin how popular her story really is, and how popular her story has been for a long time, and also how widespread it is. This isn't just a countrywide fascination, but a global one. I mean, people from across the world come and visit her childhood home where I work at Hever Castle to walk in her footsteps. It's quite extraordinary how widespread and beloved the Boleyn story is.
Give me an idea of the series, because this is a 3-part series, isn't it? So it's 3 60-minute programmes. We see the first one tonight. So is she the sort of the thread, or is she just part of the story?
She really is just part of the story. So the first part really gives you a good grounding of where Anne Boleyn came from. Really focuses on Thomas Boleyn's story. And as I say, he really has been quite a vilified character over the years, this sort of Machiavellian puppeteer. And this really strips back those myths and allows us to see the Thomas of the records for the first time, I think, which is absolutely lovely from my perspective, and I'm sure your viewers will enjoy it too. And Anne Boleyn's rise really sort of starts at midway through the second episode, so it's really quite refreshing to get to see the whole story for the first time on screen.
And the third, I mean, does it end with her having her head chopped off, or do we see how the family copes and what happens to them afterwards?
Yeah, I'm afraid she doesn't escape in this one. So
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
I'm afraid not. But yes, we do get to see the story thereafter, because Thomas Boleyn wasn't sent away in disgrace. He had a career at court, and he had other family members to support, and he had a retinue of staff and servants that he was responsible for. And it must have been incredibly difficult for him to have to carry on, to brush himself down. I mean, 2 of his children have just been slaughtered by the king who he is employed by. And of course, there was a wonderful encore at the end of this story, because there was another Boleyn queen, Elizabeth, the heir that was never meant to succeed, that Henry never wanted, actually comes to the throne, and we have a whole age named after her. It really is quite a spectacular curtain call, if you ask me.
Is it going to change people's perceptions? Because as I said, and we all know of Anne Boleyn and how she was Henry VIII's wife, and she was the one who had her head chopped off. Are we going to think, after this series, are we going to think more about the Boleyns and about her?
I really hope so. And I mean, there is a wealth of books out there that people can explore, which, you know, sort of chimes in with what we're saying here. So I really hope it starts a really interesting conversation about their lives, because there was more to them than what we've seen before, really. I think it had got a little bit stale, sort of the same old story. And this really is rooted in the historical records. And do you know what? It's far more compelling than the sort of 19th century myths that we're used to hearing. It's really quite refreshing and a really positive step, I think. Particularly with the women, I'm so pleased that they are sort of liberated from the tropes we used to seeing them.
I'm looking forward to seeing it hugely. You've got a book that you've co-authored, handily out at the moment as well, haven't you?
Yeah, it came out on the 1st of August. It's called The Boleyns of Hever Castle, and it focuses on their story at that beautiful little castle in Kent. So yeah, it's been a privilege to write it with my fellow historian Claire Ridgway, and yeah, it's been a pleasure to do. So if you would like to read more about their lives at Hever, then it's out there. So yeah, I hope you enjoy.
Do you like Anne Boleyn? Do you think she would have been a nice person to meet?
Yeah, I think I'd have got on with her. We probably wouldn't have seen eye to eye all the time. I'm not sure she'd have approved of me, perhaps. You know, she was a bit of a Marmite character. But what was so spectacular is that even those who despised her, and there were many, were besotted by her. They couldn't stop writing down what she was saying. They couldn't take their eyes off her. There was something about Anne Boleyn that was sort of universal in people's response to her. They just couldn't stop looking, and I don't think we ever have stopped, to be honest. Every generation finds a new version of her, and I hope this one will enthrall this generation.
Well, it sounds amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome. I must come to Suffolk and go to drag Arse Hill. It sounds amazing.
You must, and ride along the river. Because was it her brother that was here? Is that how she came to Suffolk, Anne Boleyn?
So her uncle, Sir Philip Calthorpe, was married to her aunt, Amata or Amy Boleyn. So yes, that's the Boleyn connection. Yeah.
It'd be nice to go back in history and just come across her galloping along the riverside or whatever. Owen, thank you.
A pleasure. Thanks ever so.
Dr. Owen Emmerson. So he is the expert in Anne Boleyn, been helping out with this television series. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? BBC Two, The Boleyns, A Scandalous Family. It starts tonight at 9:00. Lynn Mortimer is one of her picks for this weekend. She will be joining us later to look at her highlights of television for this weekend.